Hi there, folks. Brian Smith here, and we're going to talk about plant cuttings and some things you can use to propagate plant cuttings from whatever plants you like. We're going to talk about what things you can use, different rooting hormones, and the things you usually need if you're going to do cuttings. Usually, if you're going to do cuttings, you want to put the cuttings in something. Potting soil alone is not a good idea. You need something. Something you can use is this right here: sphagnum gum, peat moss, and perlite. What you can do is you take a good amount of this sphagnum gum and you mix it with about half of this perlite, and you moisten it with a bottle like this. And then you can put your cuttings in that. Okay. Now, you don't have to use sphagnum gum or perlite. You can also use long fibered moss. You can use sand for your cuttings. So there are many different ways, products you can use to root whatever cutting from whatever plant. I grow trees as a hobby. I grow a lot of poplars, birch trees and stuff like that from cuttings. But you can use many different products. But usually for a cutting, you want to use sphagnum moss and perlite, half and half. More of this, half of that. You can use sand, and you can use long fibered moss or any moss for plants. And you need some pruners to cut your cuttings. Also, a cheap way of doing it is you can take a container like this. You can buy it at a Dollar Tree store, any dollar store. Comes with a lid. You want to get a lid. It's only $1. You take that lid off, and you can put some drainage holes on the bottom. And what you do is you put your perlite in here and your peat moss in here. And then you can take a pen like this, and you can put holes in the spots where you want your cutting. And that's where you'll insert your cutting. And then what you can do is you can mist the top of it, the lid. And you can put a light in near it, and that will help the cuttings grow. As far as rooting hormones go, there are many different rooting hormones on the market. This stuff right here is Clonex. I do not know how good it is yet. I just started using it, so I have to wait to give my opinion on it. It's got a lot of good reviews. I've read a lot of good things. So usually when cloning plants, you have different options for a rooting hormone. You can use something like a gel, like a Clonex or a Root Tech or Easy Clone Gel, or you can go to Home Depot and buy a powder or buy a powder online. You can also, if you're more into natural things rather than synthetic, I've also read that willow water. If you get a bunch of twigs from a willow tree and boil them down and let the water steep overnight, you can make a natural rooting hormone. I've also heard that you can take your cuttings and put them with a willow twig, and that will help them root because there's a natural rooting hormone inside willow cuttings. All right, but the one thing you want to concentrate on too is that is the content of salicylic acid. And the acid content in here is 0.31. That has more. Now the stuff you get at Home Depot, the powder, has a very small amount. So not that it's not going to work, it's going to work, but it's going to take longer to root those cuttings. So you get what you pay for, but there's a lot of trial and error. You got to try a product until you find a decent product. You got to have patience with plants, you know, but also it's as good as the product you use. Also, something you might need for a plant is a sharp knife or a razor blade. If you have a cutting that's hard to root, you know, if you cut the bottom node off, you know, and the buds, and put a little wound in there with a sharp knife or a razor blade, then dip it in the rooting hormone, you find that sometimes will help cuttings to root faster. Another thing you can try is, we just dropped them, is these Jiffy pellet refills. You can put your cuttings in there and then put them inside a thing like this and do it that way instead of using perlite and peat moss. Another thing you can do is you can use a pot to put your cuttings in, as long as it has good drainage. You put a bag or something over it to keep the cuttings misted, because you want to keep them moist. Another thing you can do with cuttings is which is really cheap and really economical, is you can use a Ziploc bag, which is very inexpensive. You take the cuttings you want, you keep them moist, you mist the bag, you drain the bag, and then you wrap your cuttings in a paper towel and put them in a bag like this, and you put them in a dark place, and you wait until you see roots. Very economical. You just wrap them around a moist paper towel and keep an eye on them. You don't need perlite or peat moss for doing it like that. That's another method. So there's a lot of different methods of plant propagation with various plants. Layering, grafting, cuttings, air layering. I don't have a tree in front of me, but you can air layer, and hydroponics. There's a lot of different ways. The sky's the limit. I'll show you some stuff that I'm working on right now. Right here now, we built an inexpensive rooting medium, and inside here we got river birch, paper birch, and poplar, Lombardy poplar in here, and we got lights near them. These are dormant cuttings. We're going to trick them into waking up. We dipped them inside our Clonex rooting gel. So that's one way of doing the cuttings. Like I was saying, you can do it like this in a container like that. What you're looking for is humidity like this. This dome is humid. That's what you want. You want humid, moist environment. That's what cuttings do well in. And every couple days you're going to want to spray the cuttings with a little bit of water to make sure that they're getting moist. But another method of plant propagation is also the method I talked about, the Ziploc bag method. Here it is. You just take the cuttings, put them in a paper towel, and keep them moist, and put them in a dark place like these two pots right here. I keep them covered, and I just wait. So, it's good to try new things, but today it's just a lecture about the different ways you can root cuttings. All right, folks, and the supplies you need.